and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. It is Wednesday, August 19th, and we are here live in the studio at WBAI 99.5 FM or WBAI.org, on the internets, on the webs. Great to be back. Great to be here, as always. Yeah, so today we have Jeremy Newberger, who is going to be talking to us about his film Evocateur, the Mort Downey Jr. movie.
Oh.
Yeah, which is about the pioneer of right-wing trash TV.
Loved him.
Whose torch is carried by the likes of Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, and Glenn Beck, and Rush Limbaugh today.
Yeah. Love the tree, hate the fruit.
Love the tree, hate the fruit.
Well,
exactly.
he did change later in his life, though, towards the end.
Well,
sort of.
Kind of. He stopped liking cigarettes because he got lung cancer.
That's true. Well, yeah, exactly.
He said Chinaman, and he got fired, and guess who replaced him? Rush Limbaugh, the much less racist Rush Limbaugh. Just kidding. Chinaman is like the most modest, non-racist thing that Limbaugh's ever said. In fact, his fans would be disappointed. They'd call him PC, right, if he said Chinaman.
Yeah.
But we're so excited to have our first guest with us who made a film about Morton Downey Jr. Jeremy Newberger, are you there?
I am here.
Hello.
It's so good to be on your show.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Can you explain to listeners a little bit about who Morton Downey Jr. is and why you decided to make a movie about him and his show, The Morton Downey Jr. Show?
Of course. I grew up in Long Island, New York. I was born and raised in Dix Hills. And I was about 14 years old around 1987 when the Morton Downey Jr. show hit the air. And as a typical 14-year-old living in Long Island, I was, smoking cigarettes, was rebelling against the parents, hanging out at the mall, and watching lots of WWF wrestling at the time. And Morton Downey Jr. came on at 11 p.m., and all of a sudden, it was like you were watching something you'd never seen before. It was this chain-smoking, cranky, angry, hostile guy picking fights with people in this low-budget community television-looking set, and the audience backed up the guy like a crazy mosh pit. It was just a show filled with maniacs.
Right.
And he would bring politicians on. He would bring counterculture figures. You'd see a lot of like guardian angels would be there, and it would always inevitably end with brawls. And I watched the show for about 2 years, and then I just forgot about it. And I forgot about it until about 2008. Sorry, I'm skipping around my life.
No, it's good.
And in 2008, my partners Dan and Seth and I were filmmakers. We've made a couple films together, as you just described. We were looking for a new project, and we had an epiphany that the three of us all watched that show.
Were they also from Long Island or New Jersey or something?
So Dan and Seth, my two partners, grew up in New Jersey.
There you go. Okay.
And when the show kicked off in '87, it was like the tri-state area. So
right.
New York, Long Islanders, New Jerseyers, some Connecticut folks, we were all hip to the jive, so to speak.
Right.
And then, several months later, it went national because the show just sort of blew up really quick.
Right. And I actually didn't know who he was before I saw this movie. Gabe and Reggie, you did, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was one of the family watching moments. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was surreal.
Right.
It was very surreal.
I loved it. I loved watching. I mean, it was like I was probably 11 or when I first discovered it, and it was the first time I'd seen something so iconoclastic on television.
Mm-hmm.
It felt really punk rock. It also felt like I used to watch Glorious Ladies of Wrestling, and I used to watch, and I used to watch.
Bombers.
Yeah, like I used to love Ric Flair. And Morton Downey Jr. just came out and was that guy. He was just like he might as well have been. He felt like a wrestling manager.
Totally.
And the way that he baited the crowd, and the way that he just spoke. I don't want to say truth to power, but there were all these people who were seen as serious and all of these issues and topics.
Bombastic.
Right, and he definitely presented himself as speaking truth to power. Right, whether or not he was actually taking on the
right.
He kind of does it in the same way that a white male straight comedian does, takes on speaks truth to power or makes jokes
like a Dennis Leary.
Yeah, or
right.
Dennis Miller.
Yeah,
right.
That's
right.
Like pretend, like pseudo, like he's a populist, right? So Jeremy, I just want to play 2 short clips so our listeners get a sense of who Mort Downey Jr. was. And
sure.
Can you help us set these up? The first clip features is from a show that Al Sharpton was on.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So Al Sharpton,
I remember this.
Who, he in appearance and in sort of personality was a very different cat back then.
Very different
cat. He was, he had his hair in that sort of James Brown pompadour.
Yep.
Right.
He was wearing big medallions around his neck.
Running suits.
He had the cool, slick suits.
Right.
And he was, I think, making his bones on the Morton Downey Jr. show. And he was on all the time. He was one of the more frequent guests.
Right. And this is his more full-figured phase, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a big boy back then.
Yeah.
And the big news story that had broke during the years of the Morton Downey Jr. show was the Tawana Brawley case.
Right.
And if your audience is unfamiliar with it, that's like a fun Wikipedia read. But it was a young African-American girl from Wappinger Falls who said that she was raped and kidnapped by 4 white guys up there. One was an assistant DA, another was a detective. It was this huge story, and Al Sharpton ran, dare I say, leapt in the air like the Bionic Man to her defense. This was one of the many Morton Downey Jr. shows where he was defending Tawana Brawley.
It is amazing to me that you could do Morton Downey show and call something I do a circus.
I agree. You always have to have
I'm bringing out is the case. The case is this.
Wait a minute. We're coming back to the Tawana Brawley case. Stay with us.
I'll bring Tawana. I'll bring Tawana. Zip it and tell me what day.
I want him here tomorrow.
Zip it. That was one of Mort Downey Jr.'s signature lines.
He was defending Tawana Brawley with his 2 cohorts. I think it was Maddox and Mason were 2 attorneys that they were the sort of trio that had taken on Tawana Brawley's defense.
And it turned out, just so listeners know, it turned out that she made it up. She had made it up.
Right. So that was the thing. The story was filled with holes, and eventually it was discovered that it was a hoax, and Al Sharpton never owned up to the hoax to this day.
Right. And so he lost a lot of credibility, and, I mean, you could argue that he's regained it by becoming a much more serious figure who's taken on police brutality and racism and has a show on MSNBC, although he also takes money from very sketchy people. Although, maybe there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not giving it to sketchy people. Anyway, so, but another great clip that you show in the movie, which we don't have the audio of, is when Roy Innes, Roy or Ron? Roy Innes, who's from CORE, Council on Racial Equality, big civil rights organization, but now is with then turned into a libertarian and an NRA guy, and also an Alan Keyes fan. He literally knocks Al Sharpton over. They're fighting about Tawana Brawley, and he knocks him over. And Al Sharpton, in this kind of adorable Pillsbury Doughboy mode, falls over, and he looks really adorable. I just want to squeeze him. Anyway, but we have one more clip that we want to play, and this is from Ron Paul's appearance on the Morton Downey Jr. show.
Do you believe that the government should stay out of our personal business altogether?
Yeah, this is correct. Matter of fact,
all right, that's good, guys. It also happens to be my personal business if I want to kill my 4-year-old kid, right?
No. Wait a minute. Wait, you're giving libertarian a distorted explanation.
I'll stick to the issues,
Listen,
pal.
Mr.
If
Potato
I
Head.
had a slime like you in the White House, I'd puke on you.
Who's for prohibition of alcohol?
I ask a question.
3 people. We get high on the ideas of freedom. We get high because freedom.
So that's Ron Paul appearing on the Morton Downey Jr. show. And
did you hear the woman that was sort of screeching in that clip? You know who that is?
No, who?
That's Lisa Evers. She's on Channel 5.
Oh my
gosh, the one who calls him Mr. Potato Head? Listen, Mr. Potato Head?
Curtis Sliwa's
Lisa Sliwa.
Curtis Sliwa's ex-wife.
Right.
she used to come on the show all the time in her Guardian Angels outfit with Curtis.
Oh my God, so sexy.
And now she's like a respected Channel 5 reporter. You see her all the time.
Right. So
a couple of hidden gems in the film. You'll find people that completely reinvented themselves from back then.
It's true. Maybe
two of the producers of the Morton Downey Jr. show went on to produce Ellen.
Oh my God! Really? That's hilarious.
Well, yeah, right. That's not like a connection you would normally make.
No, not at all. But it kind of is. It's interesting because it speaks to the kind of overarching theme of Morton Downey Jr. From what I can tell and from what I gathered from the film, which is that his ideology wasn't that important. It was his ratings and his popularity and his personality. He started out as a Democrat. His father was this famous Irish tenor Democrat, and then he turned into a quote-unquote pro-life, I'll say anti-choice guy. But there seems something very Ann Coulter-ish about him, or Glenn Beck-ish about him. It's not clear whether or not the politics and ideology really matter to him.
To say that his father was, a Democrat, his father was like best friends with Joe Kennedy.
Right.
The patriarch of the Kennedy clan.
Right.
They had houses just across the street from each other, up in Cape Cod area, and they were very, very close. He grew up knowing Ted Kennedy and Jack Kennedy and, the whole clan.
Right.
And, his father, as you mentioned, was this famous recording star, one of the first huge recording stars in the country. And his mother and his aunts were all famous actresses. So he is kind of like, a child, a star, a child of famous people who's desperate to follow in the family footsteps. So he started off his career trying to become a singer, and he didn't have the chops that his father had. So he was sort of failing at that, and he reinvented himself as a, conservative mouth and started becoming popular on radio and, guest appearing on television shows that, talk politics until he was plucked, by the creators of MTV and put on this show to be this guy who yells at people and, causes fights and screams. And so he was constructed by, producers, and people we spoke to in the film, suggest that if he had been told, we'll hire you to be a screaming Democrat, he would have done that.
Right. And he blows smoke into people's faces, literally, right? He did that.
Yes.
Then there's footage of him, bumping into a stripper. I don't know how to describe that.
A stripper of God.
What's that? I didn't realize she was that.
Yeah, she believes that God above has given her, specific commands to strip. Oh. And she came on the show that day to preach her gospel and was essentially assaulted and, belittled. It was like the worst day of her life. I mean, we went to her house. She lives somewhere near Binghamton. She's a lovely lady. She still dabbles in the God stripping. And, she told us her story very, clearly, not like a maniac. And, it was not a great day. She went to the show to, represent women sex workers, and he unleashed fury on her, you don't expect to see someone treat a woman like that on TV.
Right.
And
he's talking about
how an audience cheering.
Right. So, anything that you can tell us about what happened to him? I don't want to spoil it for the audience, but what would you say? What are the takeaways from what happened to him?
Morton Downey Jr.'s kind of demise. And clearly there was a demise. I'm not spoiling anything, considering many of you may not have ever heard of him. It's really it's a symbol of kind of what happens when people take this kind of crazy act onto the radio or TV and they can't maintain it forever. And Morton Downey, when the advertisers start pulling out, the ratings start going down, people will do anything to sort of maintain that kind of act. And unfortunately for Morton Downey, he took things a little too far.
Right.
So you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about.
And you had access to his daughter. You spoke to his daughter?
Yeah, he had 4 wives, and we spoke to one of his daughters from his third wife, and she was a college-age girl when the show was on. So she was living with him and his third wife in Jersey while he was doing the show. I'm sorry, she was the daughter of his second wife.
Wife.
She lived with him in his third wife.
It's hard to keep track.
Her name was Kelly.
Right.
And you know what? She was terrific. She loved her father, but she kind of told it like it was.
Right.
She saw how he was behaving, how it was different than the dad that she loved and knew was this great guy, and it scared her a little.
Right. Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of interesting psychology going on in terms of his relationship with his father. As the film explains, he had a very traumatic childhood because his father won custody of the kids and wouldn't let his wife see the kids.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, he pretty much grew up without a mom.
Right. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us.